Vecinos no significa, ser vecinos no significa.
Being neighbors does not necessarily mean that we have to be friends. Friends offer mutual respect, and they do not offer up blackmail and threats. Yes, we are neighbors with Turkeys, but it's been a while now since we have been friends. Some 20 years ago, we opened a path for Turkey to become a member of the European Union. However, Erdogan has been treasonous to our friendship. They like everything they can get from the European Union, but they do not like our values. How are we going to be able to expect respect for our values if they don't respect what happens in Turkey? The path has been cut off in Lesbos, in Cyprus. This is an unacceptable tragedy. These are things that cannot accept in Europe, and these are things that cannot accept amongst friends. That is why I am so pleased to see the statements made in Moria, because the migratory problem is not a Greek problem. It is a European issue. Turkey has been provocative and has been using that as an instrument to destabilize Europe and Greece and Cyprus. Not Greece and Cyprus, but Europe, and has used this as a weapon. Now, we know that there are the drilling activities in Greek waters. The only way we are going to be able to act is an adamant message to Erdogan. Greece and Cyprus are a part of the European family. We will not leave them alone, and we will defend them. We will always take to the table to negotiate. But any blackmail, any extortion against the European Union, well, someone who would level these kinds of activities has to understand that you are threatening not one, but all of us.
Danke.